ladies and gentlemen, joining us now live is the great Nick Sortor in Asheville, North Carolina. Nick is, of course, going to be on what looks like a mobile device. Nick, can you hear us?
I can hear you loud and clear. I'm sorry. We're kind of in the middle of a disaster zone out here, so it's a little bit difficult to be stable. And you're probably going to hear a lot of background noise, but, man, there's people working at this point. But you don't see any government employees, though, I'll tell you that. I'll tell you right now, Benny, I mean, that guy is spot on. I mean, I haven't seen a single FEMA truck. I haven't seen a single FEMA employee. I don't know where these people are. They keep saying, you know, every time I post about it, I get yelled at. Well, Joe Biden says that he signed a disaster declaration. It's like, what is that? Okay, he signed a piece of paper. What does that mean? Because the video that you're showing right there on the screen, this is us. This is what we were doing. We came here. We reconnected first responders, and you know, the first day that we came here, I took my personal Starlink, the one that I'm using right now to actually do this broadcast, and I gave it to the first responders at the hotel that they were staying at, because even they couldn't connect. Their FirstNet, they're supposed to have like priority when it comes to cell phone connections and such, and even that didn't work. And the state and the federal government were doing nothing to help mitigate that issue. And so I'm telling you right now, lives were lost. This cost lives just because they didn't want to deploy these Starlinks in the beginning. They didn't want to give Elon Musk any sort of the credit. And I genuinely believe that. The last thing Joe Biden and the Democrat governor here in North Carolina wanted to do was give Elon Musk the credit for reconnecting the people out here. And it cost innocent lives, Benny.
This is a level of government cruelty that I didn't even know our government was capable of. And I think this is blackpilling a lot of people. Are they still finding bodies there, Nick?
Yeah, absolutely. They're still finding bodies here. And we don't actually know the real count for multiple reasons. First of all, they don't want you to know the real count. And secondly, some of the places that are still recovering bodies as well that are, you know, way out in the mountains, they still don't have any sort of connectivity. The radios don't work. And so, you know, when we were sitting up there in some of these small mountain towns, you have all of these police officers that are, as we're convoying to get there, they're trying to get as close to our car as possible so that they can use my Starlink that's sitting in the dashboard so that they can communicate with each other. I mean, this is a joke of a response. And, you know, I don't even know what we're paying taxes for at this point, Benny. It's like, this seems to be the most basic responsibility that government is supposed to have is in, you know, situations like this, but they're nowhere to be found. It's like they wouldn't be here if it weren't for us calling them out on X, because when I first got here, the mainstream media wasn't even talking about the fact that half the town of Asheville was gone or that, you know, pretty much the entire region was off the grid. They didn't care. They only started caring when we started calling them out on X and saying, you know, the outrage that came when I showed, you know, proof that first responders didn't have any communication. They're standing all around, you know, 10 of them at a time using Starlink at a hotel because, you know, they weren't allowed to have any.
So as we witness some of the firsthand interviews in Asheville and in Western North Carolina, we hear people say that the government has abandoned me and I'm a Kamala voter and they've given us nothing. They've done nothing. They've activated nothing. The 82nd Airborne is based out of North Carolina, and no one has done anything for these people. Is this what you've seen on the ground? And second part of the question, have you seen any government help at all? Any government assistance at all?
So what I'm going to tell you is, so part of Asheville is, you can look at a map of the entire western portion of North Carolina, and you're going to see that Asheville is the only blue dot within that entire western region. And so a lot of the people that you meet in Asheville are Kamala voters or do support Joe Biden. And they absolutely do feel abandoned. I was surprised at the reaction, actually, that I was getting out of them, where it's like they finally woke up and were like, wow, these people do actually hate us. It's like they are not on our side. Especially, you know, even the guy that was on there, that's exactly the type of language that I've been hearing. And the place that I'm staying is it's in a very liberal area, like the most liberal area. Pretty much everybody there that works there is liberal. They know who I am. They know what I'm posting, and they're on my side. They've become like really close friends with me at this point because, you know, they're backing this. They want it called out. And, you know, Kamala saying that she's going to give $750. That $750, you know, I don't know if you remember, Benny, but when we were on Maui, we did this reporting from Maui as well. When they got $700, that only went to people that lost their houses. It didn't go to like people that are, you know, that lost their cars, or, you know, their houses were damaged, or they lost their jobs and such because of the economic disaster that's now going on here. That is for a very small amount of people. And there are a lot of people that are asking me now, like, they're like, what do I do? Like, do I move out of the town? Like, you know, are we going to get tourism back here? Because, you know, some of the big tourist spots are gone. Those people aren't going to get any assistance at all. They can't even apply for it right now because of the fact that that they don't know whether or not their house is still there. They can't get there. So they can't tell FEMA that they lost their house because they can't even get there. They don't know if it's there or not. So they're just suffering. I mean, they're living on, you know, whatever was in their checking accounts at the time. That's it. That's all they got.
So they are impoverishing these people, not helping them, and then leaving them effectively to die. Our sources say that they'll be pulling bodies out of the mud for months, and that the death toll will be closer to 1,000. Right now, it's in the 200 range. Is that what you're seeing on the ground?
I 100% agree with that assessment. It seems at this point that they are not prioritizing recovering bodies at this point. We're 7 days in, Benny, and we are in a search and rescue mode still. They still haven't been able to search all of the areas because we don't have the assets here. We still don't have the manpower to come and you know, look, we should have the manpower here. As you were talking about, I believe it was the 18th Airborne, you know, not too far
Airborne,
away.
Yeah, out of Fort Bragg.
Far away from him. How come we can have, you know, the Tennessee National Guard? I don't know if you heard this story where they actually they deployed to Kuwait. So Eastern Tennessee was hard hit as well, and they didn't delay that deployment. They could have delayed that deployment. The disaster happened 2 days before they ended up deploying at the behest of the Kamala Biden regime. And they went ahead and sent them anyway. And so they still don't have any water over there. They don't have enough people to complete search and rescue. That's why you have private individuals doing these search and rescue missions, because you can't, you know, the government's just not here. You don't see the federal government very much. You see, you know, why don't we send in, you know, we have a massive military, right? Not even just National Guard troops. We have, you know, actual troops. Why aren't they here? Why
they went to Katrina.
Flooded with them.
They were deployed to Katrina. We went and looked through the Getty archives last night. It was like there's a ton of photos of the 82nd Airborne and the American military in Katrina assisting. But those are Democrat voters, which I guess is my next question to you. This is an overwhelmingly Trump supporting area of the country. These are swing counties in a swing state. And the Machiavellian take on all of this is that they don't want these people to vote. And they don't want these people to be able to be functional. They want chaos and disaster and dependency on this population ahead of an election that's going to be decided by razor-thin margins. Do you see that? I mean, do you sense any of that on the ground?
Yeah, and so I've had a lot of people asking me, like, hey, you know, people that have been displaced, people that have lost their houses and stuff, they're terrified that they're not even going to be able to vote, and that this election is going to be taken from them based on that, right? If they're not allowed back in their towns, if they don't have a mailing address, so they can't like do a mail-in ballot, they're stuck and they're lost, and they're not getting any assistance from the federal government to move things along quicker. You know, the state government can only handle so much here, man. I mean, it's not the federal government has a hell of a lot more disaster-related assets than the state government is ever going to have. You have other states that are coming in here: Vermont search and rescue, Maine search and rescue. I mean, states as far away from. I have seen more presence here from Texas and Florida than even North Carolina, but definitely more than the feds. It's crazy. But if you were to bring in those assets, they would be able to speed things up here. But
Yeah.
it's almost like they're intentionally slow walking it. And I can't help but notice that. And people here are starting to really sound the alarm on that too, because it's like, it's either criminal stupidity or they're doing it intentionally. Those are the only two options here.
Well, you began this, Nick, by saying that they refuse to give Elon Musk any credit when he's the one saving lives right now.
Yep.
And this, of course, then must be colored politically. If you are going to deny life-saving equipment and technology from one of the most sophisticated and accomplished individuals of our time just because you don't agree with their politics, well, then you're just criminally dismissive and wishing death upon your fellow Americans for political purposes, which is the best that we the best that we can assume here. And I want to ask you this question because you're one of the few people that would actually be able to talk about it authoritatively. Many say, and my contention here is that it's so close to the election that they really don't want these people to vote. That's what I believe. I do truly believe that. However, there's a greater pattern here. There's not a ton of Trump supporting Republicans in Lahaina, in Maui, and they were perfectly happy to let those people burn alive. In fact, the federal government told them to stay in their homes as they burned. And the only ones who survived were the ones who just disobeyed the federal government. You were one of the only reporters in the country that went there and truly embedded there. Can you talk about the similarities between the Maui fires and disaster and what you're seeing today in Asheville?
Yeah, and so it's the same sort of, at a minimum, there's a massive cover-up going on out here. That's at a very minimum, and that was true on Maui as well, where they don't want, it doesn't matter at that point. They're never going to lose, and I'll say this very genuinely here, they are never going to lose Hawaii. They're never going to lose Maui. The Democrats will always have them. They have them in a stranglehold, and they know that. So they really don't care about them. They just don't. But the PR, the bad PR that comes out of that for the regime, that's what they're worried about. That's what they truly don't want to come out. They don't want it to be exposed that this is a hugely mismanaged disaster, and that the death count's going to go way, way up. They don't want it to show that that individuals like myself and some other organizations are the ones that are reconnecting emergency operations centers. How is the government not doing that? I mean, you look at all the helicopters, all the privately owned helicopters that are dropping off supplies. We've been working with them. I've been handing them off Starlinks, and they've been airdropping them in some of these areas where they're still, even to this day, are disconnected. They still haven't regained any connection. FEMA says that they're handing out Starlinks, Benny. I haven't found a single one, not one. And funny enough, Joe Biden tweeted, one of his handlers tweeted, yesterday, talking about how he had reconnected North Carolina here, a small town north of Asheville. And I got an angry text message from the fire chief of North Canton saying, calling Joe Biden a jackass and saying he's lying again. You set it up. You and your Wonder team set it up, and they're lying about it. They're taking credit for it, and he is pissed. He is absolutely pissed because, the federal government, FEMA, and the Biden-Kamala regime are taking credit for what us private citizens are doing out here. It's shameful. And, I'm not out here for credit, man. That's not what I'm doing out here. I haven't tweeted much over the past few days because I've been focused on what's going on the ground. Okay, it's not about the credit, but it's all about the credit for the Biden-Kamala regime. That's all they care about. All they care about. They don't care about you. They don't care about me. They don't care about anybody here, regardless of how they vote. It's all about their image.
Nick, what is the biggest lie that the administration has told the subservient press corps at the White House? Perhaps you saw yesterday, Joe Biden said, "What storm?" I'm sure perhaps you saw that when you were back at your hotel room. What storm, Joe Biden said. He didn't even know what they were talking about. Kamala Harris up with $750 for people that won't even pay a month of rent. What is the biggest lie that you've seen from the regime since you've been on the ground here?
Saying that they have no more resources to give. That's BS. Utter BS. What resources are here? I don't see them. They're not here. So how do you not have any more resources to give? Where are they? Where are they? I know they're spending, they've spent over the past couple of years, $2 billion on illegals out of the FEMA budget. But I don't understand. It's like the power of the federal government. There's no reason that Joe Biden can't deploy federal troops here. You know, I don't understand that there's such a shortage of manpower, Benny. You have no idea. I can't express to you how light the presence of any government is here. The vast majority of people that aren't, you know, directly from these local small towns here are private search and rescue groups, private relief groups. I don't know what FEMA does at this point besides just be a PR arm for the regime, because that's pretty much all they're doing. They're all talk, no action. And people see that of all walks of life, left and right. So the biggest lie is that they're doing everything they can and they have no more resources to give. That's BS. Absolute BS. You know it. I know it. Everybody knows it.
I just want to get this one more time. You have seen no federal assistance. You've been on the ground for a week. Is that correct?
Yeah, I've been on the ground for a week. The only, so there's a, so you have, in terms of federal assistance, the most that I've seen in, and I don't exactly know who's operating some of the Chinooks that are here. I believe they're National Guard, but there are not federal troops that are on the ground here. They're just not here. You have, and honestly, you don't see very many National Guard troops either. But I do know that they are operating, you know, especially Florida. Florida's National Guard brought a decent amount of assets, but not nearly enough. I mean, they don't have a full army, right? So, but when it comes to FEMA, I haven't seen a single FEMA asset, not even one time. And I have traveled thousands of miles here over the past 7 days, and, you know, from small towns everywhere, not seen a single FEMA asset. No FEMA aid to any of these guys. And I pretty much ask them every time I get to a fire station. I talk to the fire chief, because I don't just drop the Starlinks and leave. I actually set them up and help them use them. And so I get the opportunity to talk to them a little bit. And they're all pissed off at the same thing. They're not getting any help. Not getting any help from FEMA or the federal government, and not really any from the state government either. But, you know, out of the federal government, that's what I expect them to do. That's what I expect their role to be.
Nick, this show will be happy to cover the expense of as many Starlinks as you want. So you just let us know. The chat right now is begging, how can they help you? I want to give you a chance to close. What's the best way to help Nick? Obviously, follow him. We'll put up your X account. What else, my friend?
I mean, there's a Cash App and a Venmo in my X bio, but other than that, I haven't been. I don't have like a Give, Send, Go or anything. I've been more focused on the ground effort out here. But yeah, I mean, I think so. They're there. I think Venmo is like at NSORTOR. That's the one I know off the top of my head. But
okay,
you know, I appreciate everything, guys. I really do.
This is Nick's profile right here. You can see there, Nick Sortor, 550,000 followers. You can see there in the link tree where you could potentially help Nick, or if you just want to help him, follow him. Make sure that Nick gets to 1 million subs so he can tell the world what's really happening. We need to grow our capacity to engage in the information war. And Nick is one of the greatest mercenaries of that war. God bless you, sir.
Thank you very much, Benny. Appreciate you.
Ladies and gentlemen, you know, sometimes you just hit it right when it comes to booking. Nick is there begging for the National Guard, begging for the American military. It is our absolute honor to welcome on the perfect guest to talk about where the hell is the National Guard? Where is the American military? The great General Michael Flynn joins the program live now.